You're listening to Opinions in Beer.
Wow.
Why?
Because I don't like my bald head.
What in the world? All the best people in the world are bald.
Yeah.
Stone Cold, Goldberg, The Rock. The Rock's bald most of the time. In fact, when he has hair, that's when he's weird.
Yeah, right?
That's when he's weird.
I'll be damned.
Everybody, it's me. It's Adam from Opinions and Beer. And guess who I got right here? We've got Alex with me. Alex Genealogy. What's he doing here? What's Alex Genealogy doing right? What's behind us? Pictures of people? This is like a genealogy homeworld. What the hell's going on here, Alex?
Well, he's actually in the world of Alex Genealogy. And behind us are all my relatives that I collected over the years. And I have actually more pictures than this. But he's in my, I guess you can say, my man cave.
Your man cave? That's right, everybody. It's official. Things here, if you want to open your beer. I brought a beer from my buddy Alex here. It's a chocolate milk stout, brewed with Hugo's Mexican chocolate from Hugo's restaurant in Houston, Texas. A limited release by St. Arnold's. It had a very limited quantity. I've never had this beer. So if this is trash, Alex, I'm sorry. But I figure
You go first.
we announce this new partnership that me and Alex have made in the collaborative series that is starting to take place over at the Opinions and Beer channel on YouTube. Over on Opinions and Beer channel, we are changing that from Opinions and Beer to Opinions and Beer Network, and then later down the line with just O&B Network to get the beer out. Because we're going to evolve. We're evolving away from strictly beer. I mean, I'm still going to be the beer guy, but we're going to start including more shows, more diversity in topics, more diversity in the topics that were covered. And the first show that we are adding as an addition to Opinions and Beer is the world of Alex Genealogy. That's right. Me and Alex are now partnered up. That's it. So now, with association to Opinions and Beer, it will be Alex Genealogy. I will not be in his show. I mean, unless I'm invited. You know, obviously there might be those moments, but this is Alex's show that is being made for Alex, well, for you, by Alex, with Alex as the host. He's the lead. It's his history. Him showing you the history. And that's gonna be it's a big step forward. It's gonna be a step forward in our Opinions and Beer network, not just the podcast, but the network of shows. We're as we go down the line, we're gonna include more and more people that are doing solo host shows, such as Alex. But right now, I want to start off with somebody that I've been meaning to work with, and actually, me and him have talked about working together for about 2 years now. 2 years.
I think longer than that.
Maybe even longer than that. And I say that 2 years is long enough. I had this idea. I started seeing you know what it was? Is that I personally started getting more invested in history. A lot of stuff is happening right now in the world, you know, present day, that kind of made me say, you know, I don't know enough about history for me to make a lot of comments. And just that spark of wanting to know more about history gave me just that desire inside to really help Alex. Alex is already there. He's been there. And I'm going to meet him where he's at. And we're going to try to progress forward and give you guys the best show that we can possibly produce for Alex. Sound
There
good?
you have it.
It's a mild chocolate note. It's kind of warmed up, sitting there.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good.
But I mean, it's pretty. It's a milk stout, so it has a very it's very smooth, low in alcohol, so it's easy for drinking.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I recommend it.
I've never had a Hugo's chocolate or been to Hugo's Mexican restaurant in Houston. I've never been there. It makes me want to try it though.
Man, I can only imagine how much better it'd be cold.
Oh yeah, it's still good. Technically, a lot of people say to enjoy stouts warmer, but you know me, and I say if it's not good, if the beer's not good, what the fuck happened? If the beer's not good cold, then it's not a good beer.
I agree.
But man, is there anything you want to talk about while we're here? Anything you want to chat on in our? This is after this is just collaboration. Right now, this is our introductory to the collaborative. Me and him, we come from different backgrounds, different belief systems, probably. I mean, I come from a city that not very welcoming. Well, people believe it's not very welcoming. Has a very bad history. But, so I think it's just interesting. What do you think about this partnership overall?
Our collaboration, I mean, it's amazing in itself at the fact that here it is, I'm a historian, genealogist, looking back into my roots, and you were actually born in a city that would go against everything about what I'm digging up. So it's almost like an oxymoron that we all working together in a sense of what everybody else would expect, would expect. So I guess you could say that's the beauty of it, because now we could collaborate on opposite ends of the spectrum, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
And then we can both, be educated about things, and it's just the power of making human connections and learning about different things that we probably wasn't exposed to before. Yeah. So I think it's gonna be fundamental for both of us that we all working together.
Man, I've been digging up a lot of history. Have you most notably, I just want to bring this up because I've been wanting to bring this up with you about I don't know how far back of history you go to. Did you ever hear about the Oklahoma Black Wall Street? Have you ever heard of Black Wall Street?
I'm very familiar with it.
Very familiar. Now, after doing some research, I don't know if you know this. Do you know who created Black Wall Street? Like which black community started it up originally?
No, I don't have that information.
Okay, I'm about to be crazy because I dug so deep into that because I wanted to figure out like what happened. What happened in Oklahoma at Black Wall Street? So, Black Wall Street is originally founded by slaves of the Seminole tribe from Florida. During the Indian Removal Act, the Seminole tribe took their slaves, which they bought from Spaniards. Spain taught Native Americans down there the slave trade, and allegedly, Native American slave work was a lot different than you would contribute to plantation type. But it's still slaves. Slaves are slave. Okay, and so they had their own slaves, and they moved out there to to Oklahoma area, Tulsa, and they were just able to start their own shops. And it slowly grew. Booker T. Washington ended up visiting is when they finally declared it as Black Wall Street, is when Booker T. Washington, I think, went and visited. But they were sitting there building community before Oklahoma was even made a state. And actually, it wasn't. Wow. Yeah, it wasn't even until. So some crazy shit happened. So, over in Italy, the rise of Mussolini, I believe it was, forced a lot of socialist Italians out of Italy. Okay, we start seeing a big rise in the late teens. We see a big rise of Italian immigrants showing up in America. We also see the rise of the Italian mafia. The Italian mafia started digging deep into work unions. Okay, they started getting their power a lot from work unions. They hated a lot of the market ways that was used in America. That's why I think it was 1920 that they bombed Wall Street. 1 year later, after bombing Wall Street, you see an influx, because Oklahoma's a state now, you see an influx of migration of Italian immigrants to the West. 1 year later, after bombing Wall Street, the work union set up false flag events where they make it look like a woman was raped. The Italian mafia set up events to make it look like a woman is raped to start wars.
The tension, racial tension.
Because they want control over the working market. The Italian mafia could not control Black Wall Street. So they set this up and they burned it down. The Italian mafia burned down Black Wall Street. We see a very similar event happen, and I've been tracking. After learning about it, the rise of the Italian mafia and just like kind of the weird schemes they would do and like how they controlled the unions and work unions. I tracked that all the way back down here to Beaumont, where like I think it was like 20 years later, you see the oil boom happen, and we see an influx in work over here. You see work unions make their way down here. Well, guess what? The work unions, they weren't paying African American workers their fair share. So the African American workers start picketing. Guess what happens soon after they picket? A fake rape allegation. And literally, that leads to the Beaumont race riot. Literally, like, these are false flag events created by Italian mafia socialists. After learning that, I was like, holy shit! Like we as a society are being played every day, and you need really to look at the bigger picture and stop being played. And you need to work together to grow, and put aside these weird petty differences. And that's what we're gonna do here with this collaboration. I think is we're gonna no matter what differences there are, you can still be civil with one another, and you don't have to fall for the traps that others lay, that want to divide you and keep you divided.
Respect and understanding goes a long way.
Have you heard of any of that stuff? Have you ever looked into that?
I didn't look into it specifically to that degree. Yeah. Of course, we get that it had a lot to do with white supremacy.
Yeah.
And because of the immense wealth that these people were having, they didn't really have to rely on nobody. It was an independent community. Like, they were thriving. And I guess I can kind of see why they were destroyed, because of, for one, people were in fear of the power that these blacks were having. And I think it had a lot to do with jealousy of people that wasn't getting that same privilege or the same results.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine. Then, if I'm not mistaken, didn't this happen right after the Great Depression?
No, actually, the Great Depression happens. Wait, which one? The Beaumont?
Tulsa.
Tulsa? That's before. That's actually before. The Great Depression happens right at the end of the 20s, around the 30s.
So
I feel.
Wow. So that's what made. Now,
no, think about that. Think about the rise of work unions throughout the country, blowing up things, and then boom, the Great Depression. Right there, the rise of the mafia leads to the Great Depression. Is that nuts?
Obviously, their control was not
their control
not good
gets deeper,
for the
man.
economy.
Their control gets deeper because after that they start hitting politics. That's why you always hear about how certain politicians out there, a lot of politicians, most politicians feel very mafia-like. They're all like weirdly connected and whatnot, and they have like a weird secret code, and that's because they kind of are. A lot of them are influenced by mafia-like standards. It's just so crazy. You never think about it, right? Because
yeah, you're right. It's kind of blowing my mind to think about it in that aspect.
Yeah, man. I never thought about it, man. But I kind of learned about it because I was on the fence. But then when I learned about like where my some of my relatives came from, specifically my great grandmother, who was a homeless Italian child living in a damn train car in Oklahoma outside of a Cherokee resident. It's like I knew, okay, so a bunch of like poor Italians along with the Italian mafia started just coming westward and to try to like take over this area before more people were building communities. But when they got here, communities were already being built, and so they fucking tore it down. It's like it was just a way to try to make control. Fast forward, and then you get the mafia have their pockets filled at Vegas. A lot of Vegas casinos are founded off
Mob
mafia,
ties.
mob ties and whatnot. So you see, it's
just funny
trickles,
that you
man.
mentioned it. I just think about a lot of people associate the secrecy, but the growth of their businesses, and they say mob ties.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that's the lingo. Like, man, yeah, I'm kind of blown away right now.
I've been doing a lot of research, man. Like I said, it's kind of like that research and just history in general, and like where people come from and why people think the way they think, and what tricked them to think that way, or what
What led
to this, and just that discovery really brought my love for history back. If it ever, you know what I mean?
You know what? That's a show in itself between us dissecting everything. Like,
Yeah.
let's see why the majority of people think the way that they thinking.
Yeah.
Nobody goes back to do the research or dissect
Exactly.
it to see how true are those truths.
Exactly.
Is it more emotions, perception, or facts?
Yeah, and also what really helped me try to research a lot of this stuff was like people are saying, "Oh, this happened. This is what this happened," but then you got the other side saying, "That's not what happened. You lost. Blah blah blah. They didn't fight for that. Blah blah. They were fighting for this reason, but I say they were fighting for this reason." Well, what made that argument even exist? And just that research alone, I was like just blown away of how, like, dude, in literally like a year after the Civil War. What's funny, in the Civil War, like, none of the generals died. None of the generals were killed. They, like, most of them, like, just about all of them lived. And one of them went on to basically write a book saying that the media was completely fake news. In his biography, he was just talking about how the media lied about everything he said, and about how this is why the South left the Union and blah blah blah. And then I was like, okay, so
Texas.
this guy saying this stuff is why you have this argument, but then some people just don't believe it because they quote him. But then he's saying in his biography a year later that he was misquoted, but no one quotes that biography. It's like, so who do you believe? It's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to think that even back then there was weird conspiracies and ways to manipulate the public, but they were, I mean, we come from fucking England. We come from like all these places, America comes from England and Spain and fucking Rome, where literally Rome invented conspiracies. So it's like,
right. Romanticize.
So it's like,
you say that slowly. Romanticize.
Romanticize. Anyways, this is just a taste of what you're going to start seeing. You're going to see a lot more history, a lot more stuff here on the channel, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Me with opinions and beer, Alex with Alex Genealogy. It's going to be a fun partnership.
Stay tuned. I guarantee you would not be disappointed. And I don't think he's going to run out of beer either.
Opinions and beer.
We are opinions and beer. To the prize.